Hopefully everybody can hear me. If you can, it's been a while since I've done a live. Just do me a favor and please let me know if you can hear me. Hey, how's it going there? We got Landon in the house, Shopcat. We've got Nathan, and of course we've got Bear Rose. Yep, not going to be much talking in this one tonight. What I'm going to be doing is starting vintage vinyl. I have a very large collection of vintage drag racing albums and other automobilia that's on 33 1/3 vintage vinyl. I do restore old stereo consoles, make them modernized and all that. Like to listen to that in the winter. Yeah, you can say you can barely hear me. Okay, let me see if I can fix that. What about now? Can you hear me now? A little bit better? Oh, I'm trying to work on the audio. Hold on one second. How's that? Is that better? Let me know if that's better. Hello there, Jason. How's it going? John Cope is in the house, we see, and Lars. John, does that sound better on the audio? Louder? Okay, let me see if I can get this louder. Hold on one second. All right, hopefully everybody can hear that. Trying to get this worked out here. Just give me one second. Can you let me know if you can hear that? All right, well, John Wilburn says it sounds fine. Welcome, everybody, to Two Hacks Garage Live. Like I said, we're going to try something new. Tonight, I'm going to be playing Sox and Martins from 1971. It's an LP that was put out as a promotional item to help promote drag racing, and it's going to be about an hour long, two sides. So with that, guys, I'll go ahead and get that started. And if anybody could tell me in the chat if you can hear it in about 10 seconds, just please let me know. Thank you.
That's the sound of Ronnie Sox going to work. Winning another big one for the Sox and Martin drag racing team. As in any business or pro sport, success didn't come easy or quick. I'm Steve Evans. With me are Ronnie Sox and Buddy Martin for some straight talk about straight line racing. You know, sitting around this table with you two fellas, a couple of nice-looking, blonde-haired racing professionals who have a tremendous image in this sport and an uncomparable win record, the thought occurred to me, do you ever fight with each other?
Well, we express our opinions. There's no scars as far as that goes. It's like Ronnie said, I'm sure that anybody who's been together as long as we have and as much as we have, sometimes more than we're with our wives or other people for that matter, there's got to be differences of opinion, but at the same time we still, are able to come up with some type of agreeable situation, whether we have to go different ways or try it till we find we can make it work or whatever, but we've been able to work it out so far.
Ronnie Sox, Certainly the knockout punch of the Sox and Martin team is due to work on a number of people's part in different areas, but without you there to deliver as a driver, all of their work really would be for naught. When you approach your driving, when you think about their driving, is there a certain area, a certain philosophy that you operate under?
I really believe the number one thing is being consistent with the car, knowing what you got, having confidence in yourself.
Well, what about chassis tuning, Ronnie? I know you used to do that sort of work yourself when you first got into drag racing and operated your own car. Do you still stay involved? Do you, as a driver, communicate your feelings about what should be changed to make the car get a hold of the ground a little bit better?
Well, most of the chassis is left up to me. In other words, I've driven these cars for so long that I can drive a car and tell them what the car needs, and that's got to be worth a lot for Jake and Dave, the guys that work on a car. Usually, if the car needs a little more traction, we mess with the spring eyes, load the car a little more, something like this, and I can drive the car by feel and tell them what it needs.
You know, I've always marveled at pro stock major events, the number of burnouts that you and many of the other competitors do before they get to the starting line. Isn't that very, very hard on the transmission, the rear end, the clutch?
Well, the way we do our burnouts, we don't really work the car that hard. We use third gear instead of low gear, which you don't have to take quite as high RPMs, but it makes the tire, spin real fast. And so it's not as hard on the car as it actually looks like. I think the dry burnouts is harder on the car than the water burnouts.
Well, how valuable are these burnouts to elapse time?
It's very critical on our cars, especially with the type tires we're using now that really require a lot of heat. And it's got to be worth at least a tenth, in some cases probably 2/10.
Ronnie, can you kind of guide us through a run, a competitive run for the Sox and Martin car? Let's say it's the first round of the Nationals in Indianapolis. From the time you slam the door, what happens?
After I'm in the car ready to run, my first concern is to get the tires hot, know the track. You got to know the track when you get there, because there are good places and bad places in every track. And before we've got in the car, we've probably flipped for lanes, and maybe you've won the good lane or got the bad lane, and that's going to be in your mind there. So if you got the good lane, you're liable to have a chance to be overconfident, and the guy's going to cut the tree on you. And if you got the bad lane, you're really going to be on the ball and cut the tree down. But what I do, like I say, I try to get the tires real hot. I like to stage first. Now, some of the guys have different theories on that, but I like to stage first, get my RPM set, so when the instant light comes on, I'm ready to go. Sometimes it doesn't work this way, and if you happen to stage last, and with the new instant green system they have, if you stage last and a guy pulls a quick light on you, you're in trouble there. So I try to have my RPM set. I try to do the same with every car I'm running, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And I have my shift points that I try to make as smooth as I can. On our car, most tracks I can come off the starting line anywhere 7,500, 8,500 RPMs. I try to shift around 84 to 8,500, and on a perfect run, it'll go through at about 8,500 RPMs.
Buddy, where you're usually up there in the staging lane with him and tighten the shoulder harnesses or whatever, then he pulls out onto the racetrack. Then what do you do as team manager until he comes back into the pits?
Well, usually I like to always watch the car going out onto the pad and make sure that he gets to the starting line and staged. If he gets to the starting line and staged, I know then that there's nothing left that I can do. If it's a situation where something should happen before he gets to the point of being staged, then maybe I could come up and give some type of assistance. But once I see the car staged, then I usually turn around and start heading back to the pit area.
Why not, if you would please, just kind of walk us through that between round preparation, what you do, what Jake does.
Well, usually what happens is when he comes back in and pulls in beside the truck, naturally right away we grab the hood pins. We have 5 of them, and 2 of us get the hood off as quick as possible. As soon as the person on the right side of the car normally gets the hood off, then he comes right back to the radiator and grabs the drain to get the water out of the radiator. We have usually 2 sprayers, and the other 2 people on those sprayers starting to cool. And then if it's gas, we normally like to add 1 to 2 gallons of gas between rounds because we're working on a close weight ratio. And that person will get the gas. So in the meantime, then the other 2 people are cooling, and if there's any correction that needs to be made, if we have to change tires or whatever, then we'll alternate off and grab the tires, and Ronnie will pitch in and help if that needs to be done. And it's kind of gotten to be a point that most Everybody's worked together so long that nobody really has to say that much. You just kind of do it by instinct, and most every guy knows what his position is, his job is, and what has to be done, and we just do it.
Buddy, the casual observer in the pit area might assume that the big ice chest on this Oxford Martin truck is for cooling the refreshments for the victory celebration. I know that's not the case. What is the theory behind all the icing of the manifolds and the motor and so forth?
Well, the main objective is to try to get the engine as cool as possible. We normally like to have the engine temperature down to around 140 degrees or less when he's getting ready to fire the car to start out for the next run, and because we need the ice and the water in order to do this. Plus, packing the ice around the manifold and the gas air and everything, it does dents the gas and makes it flow better and cooler, and plus it gets away from some vapor lock problems and things like this that you could have if the gas gets too hot to expand.
You know, Jake can make all the horsepower in the world. Ronnie can do everything right behind the wheel. But without the proper clutch in the car, you're not going to get the winning elapsed times that you need. Who on the team kind of handles the clutch research and the clutch setup?
Well, we work very closely with Chrysler, and they do a lot of tests. We do a lot of test work for them, and we keep constantly in touch with a lot of the clutch manufacturers, trying and checking different things as far as pressures are concerned, springs are concerned. And so it's kind of left up to me, in a sense, as to try to come up with what feels like the best combination. Then we put it in the car and let Ronnie try it and see what feels the best to him, and whatever seems to work the best for him and hold it, the best for the car, then this is what we select to go with.
Ronnie, maybe you could comment on the line lock, the button that's installed on your shifter, how that works and how you utilize it.
Well, what the line lock does, it just what the name says, it locks the brakes. I stage the car with my heel on the brake, and then I mash the button for the line lock. This locks the brakes. That way I can take my foot off the brake pedal, put it back on the accelerator pedal where it should be. Then as the lights come down, I release the clutch, I drop take my finger off the button, and this releases the brakes.
And when do you try to drop the clutch? At the hint of that first yellow light?
With the new 4/10 light like they have now, you got to drop the clutch as soon as you see the yellow light. If you don't, you're going to be behind.
Well, that first 100 feet would appear to be the busiest for you, really, having to watch the tree, and the first gear change comes very quickly.
That's right. We use a real low ratio first gear because the cars are getting so much traction now, and I cannot honestly say that I'm able to watch the tack in first gear on my first shift like I probably should. I've driven the car so much that I can just about tell by the sound of the engine what the RPMs are and when it wants to be shifted.
You may have just relieved a great many young drivers who have never admitted to anyone that they don't know what they're shifting at in first gear. Now, what about match racing? Let's go away from the major events for a moment. Is there one particular driver in pro stock that you fear the most? I know you don't fear anyone, but is there one that you kind of enjoy racing and enjoy beating more than any of the others because he's more of a challenge?
I think Don Nicholson is probably the toughest guy to beat, especially in a match race. At a national meet now, it's a lot of guys that are real competitive, and they can beat you at any given their given day. But as far as being the quickest on the lights, real sharp reflexes, being a smart chassis man, knowing what he's got under him, I think Nicholson is the hardest guy to beat, especially in a match race.
Have you ever flipped the coin, won the toss, chosen your lane while there were still a few races before yours, and found that someone completely scattered an engine and 9 quarts of oil all over your lane?
I had the same thing happen down in Florida against Nicholson and Jenkins, and right before we went up there to run, a guy spilled antifreeze all over my lane. And so this was kind of a real weird experience because this was our first run. Nobody even see the cars run, so they didn't have anything to clean up the track with. And finally we got some rosin out, and they got on the PA system and got some of the late model cars to come up and do some burn-throughs for us, try to get the track in shape so it would be a good even match. And it was really a weird experience. The first guy came up and spun through, and he ran off the track and spun around. The next guy came up and broke an axle, and the tire went under the car, and he like to turned over. The next guy pulled up in a 55 Chevrolet Gasser, busted the gas tank, got gas all over the track. They backed him up beside the timing tower, and he burnt the thing up.
You know, the driver is such a key ingredient, especially in pro stock, possibly more than in any other drag racing category. We've seen a strange phenomena. You talk about a well-to-do car owner Maybe he lives in Ohio or Detroit or wherever. He's prepared the car. He's had Sox and Martin prepare the car. And his driver will be a fellow you never heard of. And you ask him, he says, I found him. He's a street racer from Detroit. Or I found him at a backwoods drag strip somewhere, and he's great. A fellow who feels he's got that kind of talent. What's the best way he can develop it and maybe become a professional driver rather than a car owner and driver?
This is exactly the same way that I started out, to tell you the truth. I didn't have any money to start with, and I was running at the local tracks around there, and I was doing good. I was winning in my class, and a lot of the guys would ask me to start driving their cars. And then I got together with Buddy Martin. Buddy had a little more money than I had, and so this is the way we got together. He agreed to furnish the money. I drove the car and did the work on the car, but we still ran the car more or less locally, you might say. Then we kind of went out and took a chance. We borrowed some money and went up north on tour. And this way, you've got to go where you can get some exposure from the news media and things like this. And this was, I think, was our big break, was when we started racing up north. I say up north, up the East Coast. And we did have a real good win record up there. The factories, they hear about these things. If you can prove yourself that you really don't need a sponsor, you can probably get a sponsor. But so many people don't get the chance to prove themselves.
Ronnie, when Sox and Martin prepare a new car, obviously you're going to sit in the car and you're going to get the seat adjusted properly so that you're the right distance from the throttle and from the clutch and from the four-speed transmission. But what other appointments inside the cockpit, location of gauges and so forth, do you like and feel that most people should probably adhere to?
Well, I like to have the oil pressure gauge in real good sight and the water temperature, because that's very critical with these high compression engines we run.
Where in the car, though, basically?
Well, they are usually about dash level. Now, the tachometer, we put it on top of the dash, so it is right in your way. You've got to look at it if you look forward.
Right in the center of your line of vision, basically?
Well, it's off right from center just a little bit.
Ronnie, as in most forms of the speed equipment industry, there's a lot of research and development going on all the time in the construction of four-speed shifters. The conventional H pattern is still in your car, even though there's a straight line arrangement available. What's your preference there?
Well, I'm so used to the H pattern, and we're not having any problems with it. I think that the type transmission we use without the synchronizers, where it does not take much shift effort, the H pattern works fine. Now, if you've got another type transmission that requires a little more leverage, the inline shifter would be better, and it would probably help a guy maybe starting out.
What can a guy do, quickly obviously, to save his engine when he misses that first gear shift with his foot flat down on the throttle?
Well, the only thing you can do is let off the throttle as soon as possible. Never try to go for it that second time. That's where the guys usually mess their transmissions up and probably, mess their engine up by trying to go after it the second or third time. If you've missed a shift, you probably already lost the race, so you might as well just pull it on back to the pits and come back for the next trip.
Good advice from a pro. Well, the motor racing and the general press have used just about every adjective in the English language to describe the Sox and Martin team, and I think the one that fits the best is professional. When did you guys first decide that maybe you'd take a shot at both of you making a living really at your hobby? And was it a little lean for a while before it all came together?
Yeah. I know what it feels like to sleep in the back of an automobile and eat hot dogs, if that's what you mean. And boy, it sure didn't come all easy for a long time, because when we first started out, we were definitely footing all of our own bills and doing our own traveling. We did our own driving, our own work, and it was just, basically Ronnie and myself, and that was it. And so we know what it's like from that point. I started doing it full time in late 1963. He had started earlier, but to begin with, I had to keep working my other job in order to support the program and, keep it going. And then he was fortunate enough to put together the wins that he did, and we kept getting more and more requests to start coming north and other places to put on match races and, some of the better races going at that time. In late 1963, it had gotten to the point that the railroad said, you got to make up your mind. We need you. If you're going to stay with us, come on. If you're not, if you're going racing, go. So I decided I was still young, and it was something I wanted to do and felt that we could possibly do a good job at it, and I decided to give it a try. I could always go back to the railroad when I became an old man.
Certainly in those early days, you were trying to prove yourself to compile a reputation, certainly to make more money for yourselves, to win more races, but you still seem to have that fervor for proving yourself. Do you think you'll ever reach a point where you can relax a little bit, not work quite so hard?
No, it's tougher now. And the reason for that is the fact that we have been able to win. We have proven that we can do it. And now we've got to prove that we can continue, that it's not just a freak or it's not one of a kind or whatever, plus the fact that you're sitting on top and there's no way to go but down. And so you have to fight harder to try to be able to stay up there. So you can't back off for a second, because if you do, somebody will take your place.
Reliability, of course, is a tremendous factor in any form of racing, and Sox and Martin seem to lose fewer races due to broken parts than any other team. Is there some basic concept that you operate under, that Jake operates under in the preparation of the motor, that would account for this?
Yes. If you don't do it right, don't do it.
Well, anyone who's on top in any sport, such as you and Ronnie are, is going to be subject to a few brickbats thrown by the competition. And I think the one you hear the most about Sox and Martin is the giant factory support. Anybody can be a winner with that much factory horsepower behind them.
We won before we had factory support. It's just a situation where, as I said once again, it's been a deal of teamwork. It's been an effort put together by a lot of people, and I think it's you've got to keep winning in order to be able to do this, and if you do this, you'll keep winning.
You know, through your success in drag racing, you've become real personalities coast to coast. Ronnie, what has been your biggest thrill outside of racing? Racing may have made it possible for you, but it really didn't have any relationship with on-track racing.
Well, I guess probably in 1971, where we received a letter from the White House with an invitation for Buddy and myself to come and be present at a kind of a brief meeting with the president, and that just had to stand out, I guess.
If someone had told you, Buddy, in '63 that you'd get a letter from the White House, a couple of Southern boys would be going down there to meet with the president, you'd all had them locked up.
What would you have done? Been no other way. Now that in itself was just unreal. There's a feeling that comes over you when you walk inside those gates. They press that button and let you through that, boy, you just don't obtain anyplace else. And to have somebody like the President of the United States to come out and spend the time that he did with the racing fraternity and look at the racing cars and talk about racing and relate it to politics and things like that, to me it was just one of the greatest things that ever happened to racing, and boy, we were just tickled to death to be a part of it.
Well, you know, fellas who travel a great deal as their living or as part of their living, salesmen, that sort of people, they generally get together, or whenever they get together, even two of them, they start swapping traveling tales, and certainly no one in drag racing has spent more time on the road than you two guys. I imagine you've got a couple of those in your repertoire, too.
It's unreal, some of the things that you run into when traveling.
I understand Jake King almost got bit by a rattlesnake one night because of you, Sox.
Yeah, that was kind of a weird deal. We were coming to California, and it was in the middle of the night. I guess it was around 3:30. And I stopped to get a little fresh air, you know, and got back in the truck and drove off, and going up, we were crossing over to the New Mexico line, and I stopped to get a cup of coffee, and looked back in the back, and Jake wasn't there. So it just so happened that he had got out on the other side to take a break, and and I didn't know it. So I got back in the truck and drove off, and just lucky that it was another guy about 10 or 15 miles behind me that happened to see Jake stand on the side of the road and picked him up. But that was really a weird feeling when I looked back in the back seat and didn't see Jake sitting there.
Has he ever left you in a lurch, buddy?
No, not like that, but I'll tell you one thing. You can bet whenever Jake decides to take a break anymore, he holds onto the door handle. He don't just walk away from the truck.
Well, you know, I don't know whether it came out of all your highway traveling, but I know you guys have a real dedication to highway safety, and that's particularly apparent in the clinic programs. You seem to really emphasize safety in all of your presentations, and it's natural and it's genuine.
The big reason is, Steve, by being in racing, you have an opportunity to view every time that you race so many of the safety aspects that can be used in racing that can be used equally as well in highway driving. You also have a situation to see some of the things that can be done at high speeds, and some of the things that can be done to control cars, control people, or whatever. and it can be passed along so easily. And it's a situation where I tell people time and time again, they mention, aren't you afraid if you had to get out on a track or for Ronnie to be on a track or whatever? Not near as much as you are driving on the highway, because the guy that you have to race against, you know what his capabilities are. You know that he is a person that understands what he's supposed to be doing and why he's there. In the highway, you don't have that. So you also have the situation of, as I said, using the safety products like the seat belts and shoulder harnesses and things like this that are in today's present cars. And all the people have to do is just take a moment, just a moment extra, to use some of these items, and it can possibly save injury, it can save life, or whatever.
Gentlemen, neatly arranged on each of your race cars and the side of all your trucks are the decals and the logos of the various manufacturers who are involved with Sox and Martin as sponsors. What do these people expect of you when they become involved with your team, and what do they do for you, and what do you expect of them?
Well, we have an agreement or a working situation that not a lot of other people seem to have, and that is the fact that we don't take the money if we don't use the product. And if we don't use the product, we don't put the decal on the car. So it's as simple as that. I'm sure that you've seen our car enough times to know that when you see it, there is a select group of names up on the front fender, and that's it. We feel that we're using the best of the products, and we're working with the best of people. Believe me, without these type people, without these sponsors, there wouldn't be the sport, because you just couldn't afford to do it on the magnitude that we have to do it. And so we've got people like Keystone Rims and Valvoline Oil, and these people that went in with us right from the very beginning. And you take those, combined with the Hooker Header people and the Stewart Warner people, and it's just, you can just go on and on naming these people, and they're really good people and the type of people that you like to work with.
One oil, let's say, may be better than another, but you can get along with the other brand. You could possibly even get along with a different brand shifter, but tires, all of a sudden when you get into tires, it becomes a very ticklish relationship with the sponsor, doesn't it? He's got to keep up his research, his development, and have competitive tires for you.
That's true, and we have experienced this in the past, the fact of getting pinned a little bit too close to a situation where that we know that if we go with the wrong brand tire, we could lose with it. And so this is something that we have done in an area that few people have done, or maybe have even talked about, and that is the fact that we have an advertising agreement with Firestone, which I think is good, because this keeps Firestone on their toes. They know that if they slide back, that we're going to make a move.
You gentlemen have certainly made it obvious that when it comes to your choice of products, it's performance before sponsorship. And I know you use Keystone wheels, buddy. Why?
Well, Steve, this goes back to quite a ways. When we first started, or really when we went with Plymouth in 1965, I looked around at what I thought seemed to be the better wheel at that particular time, and what looked like going to be a good wheel for a long, long time, and had an opportunity to meet some of the people from Keystone and talk with them, and they seemed to be quite interested in who we were and what we were doing. And I had an opportunity to get together and start to working with the people and using their wheels. And after we started using the wheels, we found that they met specs way above and beyond what were required of them. And it's a situation where this is something that we, again, are interested in, is the safety aspect. We naturally want to go as light as we possibly can, but at the same time we want it to be a safe product. And this looked like it was definitely a safe product. It was a good product, and it was something that looked neat and dressy on the cars, and it was something that we didn't mind using on our own personal cars as well as on the race car. And we were able to form a relationship that we feel has been very good for us and hopefully for them over a number of years now.
Ronnie, what can a guy on a local basis, maybe not with a pro stocker, maybe even a bracket car, but he's good and he wins, but he'd like to cut his expenses a little bit. Certainly he's not going to go get $5,000 or $10,000 or maybe even $1,000 from a sponsor. But what can he do to help cut his expenses a little bit by flying someone's name? Maybe a tavern or a gas station, an auto parts store. Is there a good way that he can approach this man for help?
I know that without Buddy, that I definitely couldn't have been half as far as I've come in sport, because I don't have that much get up and go about me. I like to, when I get behind the wheel, now it's a different situation. But as far as actual hand of the business end of the deal, I'd probably throw it in the towel a long time ago. But there again, if it doesn't hurt to ask. If you've got someone good in mind, try to find somebody that's got a lot of money that wouldn't mind spending some of it. And it definitely doesn't hurt to ask. You'd be surprised what you get sometimes you ask.
Well, I gather from you gentlemen that Sox and Martin plans to race and plans to win for a lot of years to come.
You can bet on that.
Thank you.
Good luck and good racing.
All right. Well, I tell you what, guys, that is side one. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Lots of cool interview stuff there with Sox and Martins, talking about how he started his race team, how he funds his race team, how he goes out and races, and what kind of parts he uses. So with that, guys, I'm going to flip it over to side two. Track one is top fuel, top gas, funny cars, fuel altered, and pro stock.
This Saturday night at Lions Drag Strip, under the lights and on the rosin, pro stock match racing Southern style. Dino Don Mickelson, Sox and Martin, Bill Grumpy Jenkins, they'll all be there. You'll be next two pair of top fuel dragsters. Down the fire-up road, the next pair of top fuel dragsters. The push car drivers get those machines rolling about 40 miles an hour. The driver lets the clutch out. As soon as he knows that he's got oil pressure, he'll hit the magneto switch and they'll light with a boom. Today you'll be seeing all of the professional categories in drag racing. The top fuel dragsters are the top of the line in this sport and the fastest accelerating vehicles in the world. 1,500 horsepower. They cover the quarter mile in less than 6 seconds and speeds over 230 miles per hour. They cost a bunch, from $10,000 to $25,000, and they rely on nitromethane fuels for maximum performance. now we'll move into the funny car eliminator category. The first two cars now moving in to the burnout area. The bodies in the up position. Just as soon as those electric starters have done their job and been removed from the engines, the bodies will come down. The liquid rosin will go under the tires, and we'll see some smoky burnouts as both drivers heat up the tires, preparing to race. Fire up that next car. Must have been an 8-mile burnout. Identical to those used in the top fuel dragsters, and they hit very close to the same speed. It's over 220 miles an hour in 6 seconds. But the fans love to see the burnouts, the tire smoke coming out the windows of these machines, and they're the cars right now that really bring the people into racetracks around the country. Well, the crowd's on their feet because they, too, know the fuel haulers are coming to the starting line. The mechanized bullfighters in this drag racing sport. Short wheelbase and a lot of horsepower. stock consists of production-type American automobiles in 1969 or later vintage, the factory hot rods. The engines must be of the same type as the car was originally intended to utilize. Major internal modifications are permitted to increase performance. Lightweight replacement components such as hood, fenders, and rear deck lids are allowed, but the original steel body shell must be retained. Many of the experts feel that it takes more driving talent to win in pro stock than any other drag racing eliminator. Okay, in this pro stock category, moving to the starting line right now, you'll see a lot of burnouts. Each driver violently dropping that clutch, heating up those rear tires. The more burnouts, the softer the tires. The softer the tires, the quicker the elapsed time. Ladies and gentlemen, on the starting line, the pro stock match race of the century. From Atlanta, Georgia, Dino Don Nicholson's Ford Maverick. From Burlington, North Carolina, the Plymouth team of Socks and Martin. Ronnie Socks at the wheel. And Martin in the left-hand lane with the win line as they cross the finish line over 140 miles per hour.
This is Steve Evans, trackside, with comments from a cross-section of the drag racing fraternity. First, racing's favorite lovely, from Hearst, Linda Vaughn.
Well, I think Socks and Martin are definitely one of the first and the best goodwill racing ambassadors we have in the business. They have more class, if I may use the word, than just about any racing organization. They're very organized. They go in and speak with youth groups, put on clinics, and we are one of their sponsors, and I have to say they've done a fantastic job for us with the youth. I think that they're great racers, too. He's usually always out there winning. And if anything can be said that can top that they're utopia, I don't know the word. I think they're the greatest.
Dick Maxwell of Chrysler Plymouth.
There's no disputing their credentials when it comes to telling the kids how to make their cars go fast, because they've got the quickest, fastest race cars in the country and have had for several years.
President of the National Hot Rod Association, Wally Parks.
Well, I don't think enough good things can be said for Ronnie Socks and Buddy Martin for what they have done for drag racing in the years they've been involved. They've certainly been a credit to the sport, and I've watched their progress since they were a member of the United States drag racing team that we took to England in 1964 up to the present time, and I think that they represent nothing but extreme quality and progress in design of equipment and its maintenance and the way they conduct themselves. We're very proud to have them as a part of the National Hot Rod Association racing circuit.
Pretty Colorado superstock driver, Judy Lilly.
A lot of people teasingly refer to Ronnie as Godney's co-pilot, and I think that kind of speaks for itself, too. The record that they've established has just been, it's out of sight, really.
Bill Abraham of Firestone Tire and Rubber.
We have used them for several Firestone appearances, for talks. We've had their clinic program come into Akron. We've put it on for our management. And I think that the overall image that this team has created as a team is just terrific. The organization that Buddy Martin has put together is fantastic. We've really enjoyed our relationship and hope it continues for a long, long time.
Drag racing director for Keystone Wheels, Don Jordan.
Socks and Martin team is definitely the finest of the group of drag racers. There's no doubt about it.
Inventor of the famed Hearst shifter, George Hearst.
Well, I think the big thing about Socks and Martin is not only are they a winning team, but they're just an all-American team. that's a big help to it. But they are an image besides the fact that they were just great, clean-cut young Americans.
Brotherhood of Street Racers mogul Big Willie Robinson.
I told Sox that I'm building the King Daytona to run low nines, and I will be back east to blow his doors off. So, like, we're going to get it on, and I'm going to show him I will be the king.
And now, back to racing.
Approaching the starting line, ladies and gentlemen, the pro starter we've all been waiting for. From Burlington, North Carolina, the Plymouth team of Sox. Ronnie Sox Driver.
Chuck up another national championship title for Sox and Martin. To that one, add 64 NHRA Winter Nationals, Pomona, California. 67 NHRA Spring Nationals, Bristol, Tennessee. 68 NHRA Spring Nationals, Englishtown, New Jersey. 68 Spring Nationals, Bristol, Tennessee. 68 Summer Nationals, New York, New York. 68 All-American Championships, Bristol, Tennessee. 69 Winter Nationals, Phoenix, Arizona. 69 NHRA Spring Nationals, Dallas, Texas. NHRA Nationals, Indianapolis, Indiana. NHRA World Finals, Dallas, Texas. 69 United States Open Championships, Rockingham, North Carolina. 70 Winter Nationals, Phoenix, Arizona. 70 NHRA Spring Nationals, Dallas, Texas. 70 Grand American, Oklahoma City. NHRA Nationals, 1970, Indianapolis. 70 NHRA World Finals, Dallas, Texas. 70 NHRA Spring Nationals, Ontario, California. 70 Grand Nationals, Detroit, Michigan. 70 Spring Nationals, Bristol, Tennessee. 70 Summer Nationals, New York, New York. 70 World Championship, Bristol, Tennessee. 70 Grand American, Rockingham, North Carolina. 70 AHRA Points Final, Phoenix, Arizona. 71 NHRA Winter Nationals, Pomona, California. 71 NHRA Gator Nationals, Gainesville, Florida. 71 NHRA Spring Nationals, Dallas, Texas. 71 NHRA Nationals, Indianapolis, Indiana. 71 NHRA Super Nationals, Ontario, California.
I'm Tom McEwen, and I'm glad that Sox and Martin don't have a funny car.
Well, that's the end of that one there. Pretty exciting racing action. Like I said, I have quite a few of these old vintage drag racing albums, along with a lot of cool vintage manufacturers' albums, including some Mopar stuff, some Ford stuff. Lots of other oddball racing, including actually Mickey Thompson's Challenger 1 at the Bonneville Salt Flats. I plan on doing more of this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. There's a lot more to come with it. I know it's wintertime. We're all kind of cooped up in the shop, cooped up in the house, a basement, wherever we might be, driving down the road. And I figured that it kind of some cool sounds in the background, and I plan on getting back to doing some regular live programming where we can shoot the shit and just have a good old time. With that, guys, it is almost 10:30 at night. I am going to go inside, get ready for bed. I got a really busy day ahead of me. More sandblasting on the front engine dragster. Next weekend, I'm going to be in St. Louis picking up the tubing to complete the rest of the chassis. I did get my Hillborn injection in for it, the rear wheels for it. Still sourcing the front spokes, but hopefully we can make that thing a roller here pretty quick. Chassis is going to be a real heavy metal flake blue. It will run on methanol with the occasional dose of nitro. So with that, guys, hope everyone enjoyed it, and we'll see you again next week. I'll pick out some goodies, some gems, something oddball, eclectic, and always stay rowdy, my friends. Have a good night.